This is a story of a rushing touchdown 115 years ago, reported as gaining the most yards from the line of scrimmage on a single play in the history of Oklahoma A&M College or Oklahoma State University football, and a record which would never be broken. The myth was, and they took it as real, that Ed Gallagher had run 99 yards for a touchdown when Oklahoma State University, Oklahoma Agricultural Mechanical College, played an away game with K-State. It was their first away game out of the state of Oklahoma with Kansas State University, Kansas A&M at the time. The claim was Gallagher ran 99 yards for a touchdown. Ed Gallagher was a track star and a football star before he became a star as our wrestling coach. He was known as the fastest man in the Southwest. He had the fastest times in the 100-yard dash and the 220-yard dash and the 220-yard hurdles. He was wonderful, just a marvelous individual, a talented individual. He was involved as a student. I think he was president of the student body when he was a senior, just active in all kinds of things. And he continued that involvement throughout his whole career here before his passing in 1940. Ed Gallagher is a legend.
In the early 1900s, football didn't look like the game we know today. Key differences in the field and gameplay would lead to the validity of the story.
In 1908, the football field was 110 yards long, and there were no end zones at the end. Once you passed the goal line, you scored, whether you just immediately passed the goal line or whether you passed the goal line 20 yards past the goal line. The football is kicked off from midfield, which is the 55-yard line. That's the middle of a 110-yard field. The receiving team receives it, and then they run their plays. You only had 3 plays to make 10 yards. Today you have 4 plays, so you had 1 less play to make 10 yards. So oftentimes, teams were kicking on 3rd down because that was their last play, and if they were quite a ways from getting 10 yards, they would kick. And so punts were critical. Ed Gallagher played halfback on the team, but he also was the punter for the team. I think in that game with K-State, Ed Gallagher punted over 20 times because we weren't moving the ball. So there was a real punter's duel at the time.
2 different accounts of the game were published in 1908. One by the Orange and Black, yesteryear's version of the O'Collie, and one in the newspaper at Kansas State. The lore had been building, with accounts of the game losing detail with time. Newspaper articles, personal accounts, and official history books were all published with the rumor intact. 1908. The game OAMC versus Kansas State. Otis Weil. In 1953, he wrote an article in the Stillwater News Press, OSU versus the University of Houston, claiming the longest run was made by Dorsey Gibson. Clark Ausler contacts Weil with a personal account of Gallagher running the furthest yardage in a play. Otis Weil publishes an article the next week reflecting Gallagher's record-setting run. The Daily Oklahoman publishes an article where Gallagher ran the full length of the lot for a touchdown. Otis Weil writes a manuscript on OSU athletics in the late 50s, early 60s, clarifying the error and the field details of the time. Doris Stillinger, writing the centennial history of intercollegiate athletics at OSU, cites Weil, but misses the correction of the error. From there, it's published everywhere. Gallagher had run the length of the field for a touchdown, but it wasn't in one play. The final touchdown was achieved in 3 plays. So if not Gallagher, then who actually holds the record?
Dorsey Gibson Jr. has the longest play from scrimmage for a touchdown in OSU history. So Dorsey Gibson is a young man who grows up in Medill, Oklahoma, southern Oklahoma. He enjoys the outdoors, and he comes here on a football scholarship. He ends up playing 3 years at Oklahoma A&M College at the time. He plays both ways. Initially, early on, he's playing mostly defensive back, so he's in the back, guarding pass plays, but also helping on rushing plays if they get to him. By his senior year, he's junior and senior year, he's also playing roughly the halfback position. So he's also playing offense. And there were games where he played both offense and defense. So Dorsey Gibson wasn't necessarily the starter at the beginning of the season, but versus the game with the University of Houston, he is in the backfield. And in the second or third quarter, he scores a 1-yard touchdown. He's handed the ball and he makes it over the goal line. But then I believe it's in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes and 19 seconds remaining in the game. We're on the 3-yard line. He is handed the ball and he runs 97 yards for a touchdown. Kind of helped start the myth later on, because then they say that must be the longest run, but no, the Gallagher thing comes up. Now Mr. Gibson graduates. He goes on to coach here for a short time. He coaches at Alabama for a while. So he has kind of a coaching career. And he also begins selling fishing tackle, and is eventually really the head salesman for Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas of fishing tackle. And he wins like the Salesman of the Year award numerous times. And so he maintains his interest and joy of the outdoors. He engages in coaching on and off for a while, and he lives to be 91 years old. He lived here in Stillwater and passed away just this last spring. And so he was 91 when he passed, but led, I think, an interesting and meaningful life, but was intimately involved with OSU football for a number of years, always thinking he was second best.